If you like fantasy sports, oh, sorry.
Hey, everybody, it's the Razzball Fantasy Baseball Podcast. That was Gray Albright jamming out over there, and I am Livvy Dunne. How you doing over there, Gray?
I'm good, man. Good. Just going over these new stats that the Statcast dropped. Did you see these?
I did. A few new sets of numbers for us to use, and I'm sure abuse as we start looking at things. I think the new ones that they released were swing speed, swing length, and squared up balls. I think those were the three. I don't know if there was more, but that was the three that I saw, Gray.
There was average bat speed, fast swing rate, swing length, swords, competitive swings, percentage of swings that are competitive, blasts, squared up. Those are some of those are doubling up on the same things. Yeah,
it feels like all these are kind of doubling up on things that existed, but that's okay.
Yeah, kind of, right? I mean, so my takeaways from the new stats are, I think at a certain level, you gotta like, I feel like you have to be a little bit more judicial with what stats you give people. like just because you can do it doesn't mean you should give everyone certain stats, like I don't know, like from so I was reading on ESPN, Jeff Passan put out an article about the new stats, and obviously very laudatory about what stats are coming out and how terrific they're going to be. and in the paragraph where he talks about how terrific the stats are, he mentions how Shohei Ohtani, arguably the best hitter in baseball, how his average bat speed is exactly the same as Javier Baez's average bat speed. So I mean, I think that alone, like my takeaway from his takeaways, right? Like if you have a guy who is doing the best in baseball and averaging a bat speed of 75.4 miles per hour, and you have a guy who's the worst hitter in baseball averaging 75.4 miles per hour, I mean, that kind of like immediately tells me that I don't know how important really is a stat that is giving you two total extremes of like results, right? I mean, if the results are, fabulous on great bat speed, then, okay, then there's a takeaway there. Then there's a real takeaway. It's like, oh, good bat speed means good hitter. But that's not what the case is at all. That is honestly, that is probably going to be the worst takeaway that people can do from this, is that good bat speed means good hitter. Because like even on the other end of the spectrum, the worst average bat speed is Luis Arias, who is a batting champion. And Stephen Kwan, I believe, is also one of the worst average bat speeds, because like, they hit the ball over the second baseman or shortstop's head for a single, which is fine. That's what, it's not like you have to hit the ball hard in order to get a hit. So, it's like, I mean, I think it's just another stat that, the people will make something of it, and it will really, I don't know. I don't know, man. I just feel like there should be there should be like some sort of like you have to pass like a certain test in order to get into like the next level of Statcast. You should have to pass like a certain level of test in order to get to the second level of StatCast. Because in the second level of StatCast, you get a lot of stats, and people are looking at them, and they're not always taking away the right things. They're looking at stats, and they're taking away a lot of times. They're taking away the wrong thing, and then that just confuses the issue. It's kind of like with velocity in a certain way, hitter or pitcher. It's like, oh, it's good to have good velocity, but if they're not locating it, it doesn't matter. It's like it's irrelevant, And it's sort of the same way with bat speed. That it's nice if Javi Baez is swinging his bat fast, but if he's swinging over here on a slider that's over there, then what's going on? It's not helping things really. So at the end of the day, I think it's like a lot of the stats we already had are kind of the stats we all the stats we really needed, and then it just gets it just becomes like you're just loading on other stats that are okay, but do they mean everything? No. Do they mean anything? Maybe, but probably not. Like I would say, if anything else, if nothing else, like out of the new stats, you look at you can find takeaways in all of them, like the squared up stat. For instance, that's saying okay, a guy squared up the ball, obviously. But you look at that and you're like, okay, well, Juan Soto's really good at that. That's good. But also, Nicky Lopez is really good at that. Okay. Okay. I don't know what I'm taking away there. But, if you put a lot of stats together and, you put average bat speed combined with squared up, and you combine that with exit velocity, then at a certain point you're going to find levels where guys are good. If Mookie Betts is 70% ish average bat speed and 42% squared up and has an exit velocity of 91 miles per hour, then okay, Mookie Betts is good because he's doing multiple things well. But one stat alone, I think it's kind of like, okay, sure, great. His bat speed is bad. Okay.
You want to hear my conspiracy theory on this, Gray?
Yeah. Go ahead. Let's hear it.
This was paid for and done by Juan Soto's camp, because literally the only person who looks good in every single one of these is Juan Soto, and he's about to be a free agent. Like Juan Soto's camp paid for, did the study, produced the results, paid, passing the right article. It is all Juan Soto.
Hey, the guy going into the StatCast office, did that look like Scott Boras with a mustache?
Why does the data analyst now drive a Ferrari to work? What happened during this offseason?
Well, that goes back to what I was saying in the preseason, that I was joking around, but I was saying that what is stopping the Dodgers front office from giving a prospect person $5,000 and being like, yeah, could you make our prospects look good so we could trade them? Honestly, is there a rule against that? Because if there is, I don't know about it. If I were a team, I would be like, hey, guy from Fangraphs, could you make this prospect a 80 grade prospect, please?
That's the Yankee way, right? I mean, how many guys have the Yankees just inflated to this untouchable level, only for them to just bomb out?
Hey, Fantrax guy, could you make Miguel Andujar into an 80 grade prospect?
Clint Frazier really needs to look good somehow. How do we do that?
Yeah, I know. Seriously, I mean, I'm not saying anything was done done untoward, but Kalenic is 80 grade prospect. I don't know, man. Was there money put under the table for Kalenic's prospect grades? Maybe.
Oh, all right. So great. There's all sorts of numbers out there. They're just adding to the numbers again. Like a lot of them kind of give you what we already had. You're gonna ask me. I don't know yet what the definition of squared up versus a blast is. I'm assuming there's a miles per hour threshold here that you have to hit, which is why Juan Soto's goes from like 50% to 30%, and Luis Reyes's goes from 48% to 6.5%. So I'm assuming there's a velocity, number there. Like swords, like could I be the idiot who just has to record swords, Gray? Like this made up stat that came from TikTok that we just kind of throw in here.
I know. Like swords is
by far the dumbest.
So yeah, swords is the dumbest, but also swords is like the definition of like, don't talk to real people about anything you see on social media. It's like everything that goes on Twitter, just leave it on Twitter, because once you bring anything on that happens on Twitter into the real world, people are like, "What are you talking about, man?" That's Twitter brain. There's no reality going on. It's like, what? A sword? Oh, okay. Let's see who leads the league in swords. Huh? Interesting. Schwarber. And Javi Baez has 2 swords, and Ohtani has 3 swords. Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. that makes total sense. That's actually very useful. No, you know what? Honestly, I think like swords is just MLB trying to like appeal to like younger people.
I understand. It's just like the dumbest, literally the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life.
It's just so dumb. Like that's the kind of thing where it's like you go and you get like you bring together like 20 fans off the street, you bring them into a conference room and you talk to them and be like, hey, so what do you guys think of swords? And they'll be like, I don't know what you're talking about. You've been on Twitter too much. That's what happened to your brain. You were on Twitter for a lot of the time and you got Twitter brain. Yeah, also like just like I would prefer if StatCast could just figure out how to make like expected stats make sense because like I still have a problem with the fact that like people will get they'll hit a line drive or something and it'll be like, oh, expected 220 or something, a 220 expected batting average, and then another guy will hit a home run and it's like expected 080. It's like that was a home run, man. That literally left the park. That's 1,000 expected batting average. That is gone. It's not here. No one can catch it.
I think we've debunked XBA. Like, I really think that's one of the few that have been just like destroyed at this point. Nobody believes it. Like if you're still like citing XBA, then like that's more of a sign of you shouldn't be in these stats. As you mentioned, there should be a test to get into these. But let's go, Greg. We could probably talk about the stupidity of baseball numbers and also how we're going to use them to say everything we want to as well.
Exactly.
But let's go ahead and move on to some baseball stuff.
Nothing better than new stats to be able to help cherry pick.
Okay. Somebody who is going to be responsible for swords and folds and hashtag WAG and everything else, Gray, is
honestly, you might have just said actual stats. I have no idea. Folds. I was like looking at StatCast.
You're like, is that out StatCast? Is that one of the ones they released?
Is there folds? I like that. I like folds.
All right, Gray. So the person we're talking about is Paul Skenes. He debuted. If you didn't hear, he's the biggest pitching prospect since Steven Strasburg, because that was put on him like 2 weeks ago, and so now it's just the title that comes with him. But the 21-year-old righty was Itch's number 8 prospect overall. He has 27 and a third innings this year, AAA. He has an 0.99 ERA, an 0.9 WHIP, and a 43% K rate with a 7.5% walk rate. He went 4 innings versus the Cubs, gave up 6 hits, 2 walks, 7 Ks. He features a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, slider, change, curve, and what is called a splinker. It is somewhere between a splitter and a sinker, because, we have to apply every single new stat, hashtag, and anything we can to Livvy Dunne's boyfriend here, Greg.
Yeah. So I was actually, my mom was in town for for Mother's Day, right? So and we went to Palm Springs to see Cougs' mom. So I was and on Saturday for the Paul Skenes start, I was at a casino in Palm Springs because my mom wanted to play the slot machines. Anyway, we won't talk about the odds of slot machines. So Paul Skenes. So I watched him in the sports book of Morongo, where the morons go. So I was watching him, and my biggest takeaway was he looks absolutely polished. Like, I think I mentioned this on the site. Like, he looks like he could be in his 3rd year of the major leagues. Like, he looks polished. I have no doubt he can be successful. Like, he looks like a guy who's been, pitching in the majors. He looks like he could possibly be like a top 20 starter, like right now, like out of the gate. Like, he looked good. In the start, the specific start on Saturday, he wasn't locating very well. Like, a bunch of his pitches were missing off to the. It looked like he was opening up a little early, but anyway, he was probably, like, I would say he was probably as good a fantasy, like a rookie starter as I've seen in some time. Like, absolutely. Like, I believe the hype. Like, I'm on board with it for sure. With all that said, like, I went back and I looked at the 2010 stats for Strasburg. And if he were to repeat Strasburg's stats, I would absolutely take them. I mean, Strasburg had a really solid, 70 innings. But 70 innings is not going to get you a top 30 starter even. Like, that's not really, and especially the Pirates. So Paul Skenes' projections right now have him like around I think 6 to 7 wins, a low 3 ERA, low 1, like a 1.25 WHIP, which, it depends on how good his command is. But his command didn't look great on Saturday, like I mentioned. But anyway, and the strikeouts are going to be insane. But how many innings is he actually going to pitch? So, like I mentioned with Strasburg, around 70 innings for him. If we don't get more than 100 innings, which we're never going to get more than 100 innings, honestly, I would put his Skenes' innings projections probably around what we got from Strasburg. So if you're getting 75 innings and 5 to 7 wins and the other ratio stats that I mentioned, and even an incredible strikeout rate, like, say, I don't know, 11.5 to 12.5 K per 9, even if you're getting that in 75 innings, you're not getting a top 30 starter. So, with that said, because I've seen other, people rank him in immediately in the top 20 for starters. And, I think what you're looking at is a guy who's going to be probably overrated for the most part for this year, just because of the innings pitched that he's going to be, his innings pitch limit and his probably pitch count limit. They're going to baby him, right? So, I mean, it depends on what you can get in trades. If you have Skenes, and it's a redraft league, I think you're probably better off to trade him if you can get anything decent. Like, if you're able to get back like maybe a struggling outfielder, like I don't know. I've seen Randy Rosarina batted around in a lot of trade offers because he's really struggling. I think he's hitting like 150. But it depends on what you can get in a trade. Anyway, I'm not going to go down all the actual potential trade possibilities, but I think Skenes is going to be a little bit overrated this year for redraft leagues. It depends on what you can get, but in a dynasty league, I would be very happy to have Paul Skenes. He looks as good as advertised. Like his stuff was totally nasty. He threw a couple, I think it was a slider. He threw a couple pitches that were like, damn, like no one's hitting it. Like that doesn't matter. It's like he's probably going to have like, I would guess a Cy Young or 3 under his belt by the time he retires. Assuming healthy, of course, but he looks really solid. Like as good as Garrett Cole, if not better, when he first came up with the Pirates. Like he looks, I think, better than Jared Jones, who looks excellent, like Jared Jones looks great, but I think Skenes is better than him as well. So yeah, I like Skenes a lot. I just think he's probably overrated for redrafts.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly see that. It's just, whenever we get guys who come with this much hype and then they look the part, it's easy to fall in love with them. I will say most starters are through like 40, 50 innings. So if we're talking about from this point forward, from really good starters, you're getting 130 to 150. Most guys, you're getting 100 to 130. I think Skenes can kind of fall into that. He had 120 plus innings in his last year in college. They could throw him 100 innings, and I don't think anybody would
push back on that. I mean, even though you let me talk, I will do the opposite.
Immediately. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll push back on that though, because like in the minors, like this year, he had 7 starts and he threw a little over 27 innings. I mean, he's averaging less than 4 innings a start. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm totally crazy, but they look like they are extreme, like babying him to the point where he may have a bunch of games where he doesn't even throw more than 5 innings. Like I would not be shocked. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but like we're in May, right? Like mid-May, he hasn't had an injury and he's still only throwing 4 innings a start. I mean, what's going on?
Well, in this one in particular, he started to get in trouble. I think they just wanted to make sure that it didn't balloon out because, he was cruising through 3.5, 4 innings, and then, he started the 5th, and the 5th is kind of where he got in trouble. So, I mean, I don't know that it's necessarily, and the minor league numbers is a legitimate argument. I think to some extent they were like, we know he's good enough. We don't need really, we're just sending him down for the clock and to work the innings. It's not like, the minor league teams, they're necessarily worried about their records or anything. So I think he could still throw 100 innings. If it's 85, so be it. It's still worthwhile. He's not a top 20 pitcher. I agree. Even if it gives you 100 innings from this point forward, I would say if you look at like Glasnow from last year, who put up 120 innings, that would be the high end for what you're probably getting from Skenes, and that was 39th on the player rater among pitchers. So to your point, it's not top 20, it's not top 25, even if he's everything that we want him to be, really.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. All right, so moving on to the next guy who was called up, which was Robert Gasser, 24-year-old lefty, number 7 on the Itches Brewers prospect ranking. In AAA last year, he had 135 innings, 3.79 ERA, 1.28 WHIP, 28% K, and 8.4% walk rate. He only had 3 starts this year in AAA, and that was over 12 innings. The numbers weren't great. I'll just go ahead and say that. But In his first start versus St. Louis, he went 6 innings with no walks, 4 Ks, and 2 hits. He's a fastball, sinker, slider, and then an occasional changeup guy, Gray. I mean, we talked about how good Skenes looked. Gasser's numbers actually, were better. I know we're not putting Gasser above Skenes, but where does Gasser fall in here for you?
So I don't even know if Gasser's going to be in the rotation for, past maybe this. He's starting this week, I think, against the Pirates. And then after that, I don't know if he's going to stay in the rotation. So, I mean, he's sort of a streamer for me for most mixed leagues for, at least 12 team and shallower. For 15, I mean, obviously you grab him and see if he stays in the rotation, if he can continue. He looked pretty good. I mean, the Cardinals lineup looks worse than a lot of minor league lineups. So it's not the most threatening lineup that he faced and he pitched well against, but there's a bunch of teams like that. Like he's going to go against the Pirates, and the Pirates lineup doesn't look that great either. So, I think Gasser is probably a start by start guy at this point. He didn't throw any walks in his first start. If he can command his pitches, he's a lot more interesting to me than probably he would be if because in the minors his command was a little bit wonky. He doesn't really overpower anyone. I think he's got a 92 mile per hour fastball, 80 mile per hour slider. He's fine. He seems a little bit like a back end fantasy guy, like interesting for deeper leagues, but probably a streamer in most shallower.
Yeah, I think he probably is a streamer at this point. If we see him continue to put stuff together, then go ahead and take a shot. But it wasn't. I mean, no walks in this one. He had an 11.8% walk rate in his 12 innings this year. He had an 8.5% walk rate last year in AAA. So I'm really interested more, I guess, in whether the walks can stay away at this point. I think he has, good enough stuff to survive and stay in the rotation, because it's not like Milwaukee has anybody that necessarily needs to take his spot in the rotation currently. So I guess there's an opportunity here, but I would agree it's not really somebody I'm picking up and rostering and holding on to at the moment. Gray, I have a serious question I need to ask you.
Okay.
Would you dare trust Alek Manoah again? Is this possible to do it after his start against Minnesota where he went 7, no earned, although there were 3 runs, 6 Ks, 1 walk?
I would trust him if I was like, you know what? Make the whole bag of pasta. We'll finish it. I would trust him to finish it. That's about it. Very little things on the baseball field I would trust him for. I honestly, I think I said this on the site that like I preferred to win my fantasy leagues versus lose them. So I wouldn't go anywhere near Alek Manoah. I would honestly, I think Alek Manoah is on a don't pick up list. How they have they have the list, TSA list. Well, Alek Manoah is on my TSA list. He's do not touch. There's no way I would not go near Alek Manoah if he rattled off 2 months worth of decent starts. No way. And after one start where he looked kind of okay, he still gave up. I think there was 3 unearned runs. So it wasn't like he had a perfect start on Sunday. And his start before against the Nationals was awful. Yeah, there's no way I'm going near Alek Manoah. Honestly, it would probably take a good month. No jokes. A good month of his pitching well for me to even be somewhat interested. And by that point, he would be picked up by someone else. I'm not interested in Alek Manoah at all.
Yeah, I mean, I will say we once put Jose Barrios on that list.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Jose Barrios, and then Jose Barrios threw an entire good year, And at that point in the offseason, I was like, okay, I can get back in on Barrios, but
if he stays at the top of Rudy's war room for like 5 rounds,
yeah,
then we'll take
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. If Manoah is good from this point until the end of the season, and then all preseason, Rudy's war room says to draft Manoah, then okay, maybe.
Yeah, that's fair. I will say if you are a Manoah believer and you want to see good things are happening, velocity's back up. It's over 93. That was one of the first signs that things were falling apart. Pitches seem to be moving more vertical than horizontal. That's good. He is throwing the sinker more than the four-seamer. That's not necessarily something he's done in his career, but I mean, anything to get the ball moving a little bit more, I think, is going to help. So I'm not buying in yet. I agree. It's been one start, and he did give up a home run. It just happened to be on a unearned, like just 3 unearned runs. So yeah, waiting and seeing if you're in a deep enough league where you're picking up every starter or anybody with any upside, then I get it. But other than that, hold off and wait.
So like that's a not I don't know if it's as bothersome as a pet peeve, but to me, like an unearned run is like the second baseman makes a bad play and a run scores on that play. But when a pitcher is like, if it's 2 outs and a fielder makes an error, everything after that is going to be unearned. But if a pitcher gives up a home run, that kind of should be earned. I mean, that was kind of like, that's kind of on the pitcher giving up a home run, even though I know why it's unearned, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if he's supposed to be out of the inning, though, it wouldn't have happened. But yeah,
I know, kind of, but it's kind of like a sliding doors Gwyneth Paltrow situation. I mean, yeah, I get it. He should be out of the train station, and he shouldn't be like, he should be meeting a doctor and falling in love. I understand the reason why it's unearned, but you give up a home run, it's kind of
it's fair grade. Let's not get into all of our gripes with baseball stats again. Let's just keep it moving here. Max Fried, he is coming up. He came up short on a combined no-hitter. It would have been it's his second of the season where he came up just short after what was a horrible start to the season. He's been Max Fried. Other than the K rate's been downgrade. It's 20.4%, 9.5% walk rate. So the walk rate's up. The K rate and swing and strike rate are both down. Everything else kind of looks in line here. But where are you on a Max Fried? Are you using this? I know you didn't like him in the preseason, but are you using this stretch to maybe move him? Or are you now okay with him, or somewhere in between?
Yeah, no, I haven't really changed my mind on Max Fried. I think he looks like a solid number 2 to 3, and a lot of people think he's like a 1 to 2. So I think he's still overrated. I'm not really a fan of his, even after the I think he's now has 2 potential no-hitters that he was pulled from. And honestly, he was pulled from because he's not locating that well. I mean, his walks are up. He looks like less of a pitcher than he was even the last couple years. Like, he doesn't look right. I would be selling still. I know I said to sell him previously, and if people sold when I said to, then they missed out on a lot of good starts, so that's my bad. But his stats still don't really look good to me. I mean, he looks kind of, and last year he had the arm injury. I don't know, man. I mean, he's thrown 45 and a third inning so far. Let's see him get to 120. Like I don't see it. I know it's like you never know with pitchers and their arms. I mean, it's so hard to say. Like, you could basically say like for any pitcher, like let's see him get to 120 innings. And more times than not, you're probably going to be right because pitchers just don't throw that many innings anymore. But I just don't trust Max Fried at all, man. I don't know. I know you're a fan, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I am a fan. I do like Max Fried. I wasn't as concerned about the arm injury in the preseason as you were. I think that was the primary holdup for you. But I will say that the pitch mix is changing. The K rate is down. The walk rate's up. I don't love that combination of things, even with the velocity up, because as you said, we can kind of point to anything, and anything can be a signal of injury. But like a velocity spike can be just as bad as a velocity drop in regards to like things are about to happen that aren't great. So I would actually kind of maybe take this opportunity to sell Max Fried at what was probably get drafted value now, just because I don't know if the Ks are coming back and the walks have been really high, as you mentioned. I think from what it looks like watching him pitch and just looking at the numbers, it feels like he's nibbling a lot. Like he doesn't necessarily trust himself like he has in previous seasons, which is why I think the walks are up. And that's not getting him in the same like good counts, so that he's not getting ahead of as many batters. I feel like deep in the count, he's getting first strikes, but then like nibbling after that. I don't know. It could just be me. Let's talk about another pitcher here in Atlanta, though, real quick. Razzball blew the most recent no-hitter bid. He's not had the best of year. Are you worried about Razzball Iglesias at all?
Razzball Iglesias? No, not really. Minter gave away the game on Sunday, or was it? Yeah, it was Sunday, I believe. Yeah, and Minter hasn't looked good. Yeah, I'm not worried about Razzball Iglesias. I mean, as long as he's healthy, he's the closer. I mean, it's not who else are they going to, really?
No, I mean, it's probably him. I'm just anytime there's a potential blow up here or there, you always worry a little bit. But yeah, I would agree.
I mean, if Minter looked good, maybe there'd be something there, but it's not like anyone's really been behind Iglesias and been like fantastic. So I think he's probably fine. And plus, Iglesias is one of those guys where he's not really like built to be. It's kind of like the Kimbrel situation, where it's not like Iglesias going in to like the 7th or 8th inning. I don't know. It's like what are you're paying him to be a 7th inning guy? I don't know. I'm not really worried about Iglesias.
Yeah, and for I guess our purposes, when he does get hit, he's not giving up 4 earned runs. He's just blowing the save, or he's taking a loss here or there, just giving up random bad outings like we've seen. But the K rate is plummeted this year, which it's not great from a strikeouts perspective and where he ranks among other closers. But being on that team, you just take your saves at this point and just enjoy that. I guess if it's anybody, I think it might be Joe Jimenez. He's been really strong this year. One of those random like 1-4 strong Joe Jimenez years. So if it's anybody, it's him. But Razzball's been fine. All right, Gray. Let's go into a little quarter mark of the season. Your favorite game, scientific fact, Sex Panther, or I don't believe you. Real quick, scientific fact. You believe in what they're doing. It's actually happening and it's real. Sex Panther, 60% of the time, it works every time. So you're kind of believing, but it's more in the middle. And then, of course, I don't believe you. Let's go ahead with some of the good side real quick, Gray. Ranger Suarez, who is currently and has been the number 1 starting pitcher on the player rater. He has 54 innings this year, 1.5 ERA, 0.72 whip, 28% K rate, 4.1% walk rate, 7 wins and 8 start, the highest K rate of his career, lowest walk rate. We've talked about him before, but he's still doing it at the quarter mark, Ray. Is Ranger Suarez is this just a season?
Yeah, I mean, if you look like, so this is going to be a with Ranger Suarez. I think the comp I was going to do was Sandy Alcantara when he won the Cy Young. Not like insane strikeouts, but really good command and solid ERA, solid ratios, right? I don't think Ranger Suarez is necessarily a guy who's going to be, awful. Without, you never know with like luck with pitchers. Like if he gets unlucky, anything could happen for sure. But I mean, if you look at his numbers, his his like Ks and walks play. I mean, like I've said, 1,000 times before, like if a guy doesn't throw any walks at all, especially right now with the way the game is played with the pitch clock and everything, if a guy has good command, he can really succeed. So, as crazy as it is, I'm not going to say he's a 1.5 ERA pitcher, but Ranger Suarez, like going back to the Alcantara one, like Ranger Suarez could have a 2.4, 2.5 ERA on the season with like 20 wins and great whip and good enough Ks where like if he throws 160, 70 innings and has like 175 Ks, Ranger Suarez could be a top 5 starter this year.
Yeah, I mean, he really could be. And it's one of those guys where, like, the stuff has always been there. It's just kind of, he was inconsistent. The walks would be up a little bit too far for him to really take that next jump. And if he was really cut the walks in half, which has helped the strikeouts because he's in better counts and he's being able to use his stuff, like, it really could be, a breakout year for him. And, even at, I mean, you mentioned the Ks. Previously, yeah, he wasn't a big K guy. 28% this year. I mean, nobody's scoffing at a 28% K rate. That's as good as anybody you're going to find. And, he's kind of ditched the slider, which was his calling card for so long. And he's moved to the cutter, curveball, sinker to go with his changeup. And it's kind of like all the pitch mix is working for him right now. So, yeah. Ranger Suarez has been great. I mean, if you can move him as the number one pitcher, I have no problem with that. But I also don't think he's just going to bottom out into a bottom 50 pitcher either. William Contreras, the number one catcher on the Playerator. He was the number one catcher on the Playerator last year. Is he the number one? Like, have we just been kind of ignoring William Contreras' change? And should he be just the number one catcher, Gray?
Well, William Contreras has a 43% squared up rate. No, I'm joking. William Contreras is like so underrated that I think, honestly, if you were to stop the season right now and redraft, I think he would still probably go at like 3 or 4 for catchers. I still don't think anyone, and this is now like last year he was the number one catcher on the Playerator. This year he's the number one catcher on the Playerator. So we're going on now like 2 years of him being a number one catcher on the Playerator, and he's got 12% walk rate and a 19% strikeout rate. So it's like, yes, the BABIP's high, but he is a 285 to 300 hitter. And the Brewers aren't like, a stacked lineup where he can't get DH time. So he's going to have like a ton of plate appearances with a 285 average. That's going to give a ton of runs and RBIs. So even if he only hits 15 homers and steals 6 bags, for a catcher who's, if he can give 85 runs and 80 RBIs for a catcher, that's a number one catcher.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he, as you mentioned, he's playing pretty much every day. He might have had like one off day all season. He's played 40 games, and I think the Brewers are, I don't know, have played 40 games. So I actually think he's actually been in every single game so far, Gray, which for a catcher is huge to play outside of just the games they're catching. And yeah, he's hitting 346, 5 home runs, and 3 stolen bases. So all that is adding up. He's not striking out. He's got the best strikeout rate of his career. His home run to fly ball is in line with last year, so nothing looks weird. Line drive rate is actually better. He's swinging less outside than ever, so everything looks good on William Contreras. The only thing I would say is, like, catchers tend to fall apart in the second half, so that would be my only concern, but he's already done it, and they're going to give him DH time. So, yeah, William Contreras is great.
Yeah. For as far as his playing time goes, it looks like he catches every game except once per week, and the once per week he doesn't catch, he seems to DH. So he's basically he's in the lineup like every day.
Yeah, he plays every day.
Yeah.
Somebody who doesn't play every day, but is number 6 on the starting pitcher player rater is Shota Imanaga. We've talked about him before, but with the quarter of the season mark here, I just want to ask you kind of where he's going to fit in among starting pitchers for you rest of the season. Rudy has him number 25 rest of season on his projections. He has 41 innings. He's a 108 ERA, 0.82 whip, 5 wins and 7 starts, 27% K rate, and a 3% walk rate, Gray. I mean, I don't think either of us thought he was going to do this, but it's really hard to ignore it.
Yeah, no, completely. I thought with Imanaga, he was probably going to be, like, at best, like what we saw from Kodai Senga last year, which was fine. I mean, it wasn't bad. I thought maybe like top 25 starter at best, but he looks like, again, his numbers look very similar to Ranger Suarez, where, solid enough strikeouts, incredibly good command, which is surprising to me. With Shota, the thing I'll say with his command is I wonder if it's because of just from the hitters not really knowing him and facing him so little that they don't really they're not waiting as much as like hitters in Japan were, because like his command has gotten markedly better, which is kind of surprising because like you wouldn't think he'd go, come to the majors and have better command. It doesn't really make a ton of sense, but I'm guessing it's because hitters aren't as familiar with his pitches. So maybe that's why. But right now, I mean, his numbers look totally like legit. Assuming his command doesn't go sideways at all, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be a top 10 starter. He looks the part.
Yeah, he looks great right now. Let's throw him up against fellow signee this year, Yamamoto. Would you rather have Shota or Yoshi?
I think I'm still going Yamamoto. It's close though. It's closer than it was in the preseason for me. Yeah, I think Yamamoto just looks like a little bit more like unhittable, basically.
No, I get it, and he also plays for the Dodgers, which helps. Would you take him over Max Fried, who we talked about?
Yeah, I would take Shota over Fried.
Okay. Aaron Nola, who's also had a,
no, I don't want anything. I don't want to have anything to do with Aaron Nola.
Yeah. We talked about that preseason.
Yeah, Shota over Aaron Nola.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, it does sound like he's at least in the top 20 for you, if not top 15 or higher. So let's go ahead and move on to a random blast from the past coming up from nowhere. Like, just glass breaks. Stone Cold Steve Austin comes out from nowhere. Jerks and Profar has been just amazing this year, Gray. 319, 400, 500, 6 home runs, 2 stolen bases, 22, 27. He has the best hard hit and average exit velocity of his career. K rate is second best. Walk rate is third best. Launch angle is actually down from the last few seasons when he struggled, so maybe that was the issue there. Is Jerks and Profar somebody for real, or should we just be trying to sell him off as soon as we can and use his 28th on the player rater for now as our selling point?
No, I mean, I think I'll go with, I'll go with Sex Panther.
Okay.
Because that's the category I least understand, and I least understand Profar.
I feel like that's the appropriate place for him, and pretty much for his entire career, really. 60% of the time it works every time. That's been about Profar's hit rate. So
like he looks like at this point, like Profar's got a 343 BABIP, which for him seems really high. Like he doesn't hit the ball hard. He looks like a 250 hitter disguised as a 320 hitter right now with, no real, not real power. Like he's got 6 homers right now, but that could easily, he could end up with like 15 to 17 homers on the year. So you're talking about maybe 11 more homers for the, next 3 quarters of the season. And he doesn't really have speed. He has 2 steals now. He may end up with 5 steals. Like if he ended up at the year at like 17.5, 270, it's so whatever.
Yeah. Let me ask you, would you rather have him or his San Diego teammate, Jake Cronenworth?
I think actually I would take Cronenworth.
Yeah, I think I would too. I think he's just more secure in where he's going to bat in the lineup, and just feels more like what he's doing feels more legit, even though I don't really think he's a 285 hitter. I just don't fear him falling out of just bottoming out like we've seen Profar do already in his career. Right. Dylan Cease is up next, Gray. Number 3 starting pitcher on the player radar. 49 and 3rd innings this year. He is a 2.19 ERA, 175 5.2 with over 8 starts, 32.4% K rate, 8.6% walk rate. Velo's back to some extent. It's above 95 at least. Rudy has him number 17 on his rest of season. Are you throwing him into scientific fact, Sex Panther, or not believing in Dylan Cease?
I would actually go scientific fact with Dylan Cease. As I think I talk about this a bit in like the mid-season like top 100, that like pitchers, once you get into the season, and the pitchers start to shake out a little bit, you kind of feel like you can understand, like you can see the big picture a lot easier once you're in the season and guys are throwing. Like unless Dylan Cease goes gets injured or something happens that is unforeseeable right now, like he looks like he's a fixed pitcher, which is, that's good. Like his command looks better. He's still throwing for a lot of strikeouts. He looks good. Like there's no reason. I don't see any reason to doubt Dylan Cease anymore. Like I totally was doubting him coming into the year. Don't get me wrong. I don't have him on any team. I was really out on him coming in, but he looks fine. I would absolutely I would trade for him. I think he looks like a top 20 starter.
Yeah, he looks great. The velocity being back and the control is really all that you could ask for from him. So yeah, absolutely. I enjoy if you can get Dylan Cease, grab him, but he's probably not going anywhere now.
He looks like a vintage Yu Darvish type year is incoming. Like, really solid strikeouts, good, solid enough command, and good ERA and whip.
Yeah, that sounds great. This one's pretty random. Actually, the next couple are pretty random, Gray. Seth Lugo is the number 4 starting pitcher on the player radar. He's generally been a good pitcher when he's on the mound, but I don't think anybody ever thought him as a number 4 on the player radar type of guy. But this year he has 59 and 2/3 innings, 1.66 ERA, 0.96 WHIP. He's 6-1 through 9 starts. He's got a 21% K rate, 5% walk rate. He's number 87 for Rudy on rest of season. So clearly Rudy is not really expecting a whole lot from Seth Lugo rest of season. But what about you? Are you a little bit more optimistic than Rudy is on Seth?
Yeah, I'll say with Seth Lugo, I think he's underrated for the most part for his whole career. Like he is over 700 plus innings in his career. He has a 3.34 ERA. So he's really solid. Like there's no reason why he should have been going, and that's partly my fault as well. I should have ranked him higher. Like there was no reason why he should have been drafted as low as he was. he's a solid like number 3 to number 4 fantasy starter, like a little bit, maybe as I could, what you were expecting from Chris Bassett this year might be what you're going to get from Seth Lugo, like a 3.5 ERA guy, maybe around an 8K per 9, solid enough walks. He's not a 1.66 ERA though. I mean, this is like if you had Seth Lugo this year, buy a lottery ticket, bro. Like you should be at Morongo where the morons go. I would absolutely like be selling Seth Lugo if I thought I could get anywhere close to his price, but I don't think that's even possible. Like, I feel like he's the kind of guy where you just ride it out and see how long he can keep going for. Like, at some point he's going to hit a rough stretch and he's going to end up around like a 3.5 ERA, which is fine. I mean, that's rosterable in every single league. It's just not what he's doing right now.
Yeah, and I, certainly a little concerned over him just staying healthy. There's a reason that he was once moved over to relief, and it wasn't really necessarily because he couldn't pitch. It was just he couldn't stay on the field. So that's a bigger concern for me, I think, than even the fall off is going to be. It's just I don't know how many more innings you're going to get out of him, but I agree. You just write him out because nobody's going to really give you anything of legitimate value for Seth Lugo. So enjoy it while you can. This is somebody who really hurt me last year, Gray, and apparently hurt me again by being good again, and that is Willy Adames. 40 games this year. He has 7 home runs, 7 stolen bases, 25-27. He's hitting 258, 341, 458. Best K rate of his career at 20.5%. Really cut down on the outside swing rate. Contact rate's up. I mean, what does it do? People just decide to go against me? Is that what happens, Gray? Or it's really annoying.
I know. I'm actually I'm having one of those as of right now. I'm jinxing myself by saying this, but I'm having one of those years where I actually am on the right side. Like I'm like top 5 overall in the TGFBI, and like my teams are doing really well. Like in labor. In my labor league, I'm in first place by like 10 points. Like things are going well. I have the guys who are going well. But I know how you're feeling because last year when I was drafting the Alek Manoahs, I was like, what? Why does everyone hate me? I've been there, man. It sucks when you're on the wrong side of things. Yeah. So anyway, Willy Adames. Yeah, I mean, he looks like he's actually made strides with his contact, which is, that's an improvement I think that actually can hold. I don't know if he's going to continue to steal like he has been because, his career high is 8 steals over the course of 139 games. And right now he has 7 steals in only 40 games. But if he continues to run and he's getting on base like he has been, throwing like, it's bizarre to say this, but his numbers look like what you were kind of expecting from like a Randy Arozarena with like, 24 homer power, 20 steals, and a 260 average. That's, it's a top 30 to 40 player overall.
Yeah, and I couldn't figure out for the life of me how Adames went from 5 stolen bases in 2023 8 stolen bases in 2022 to 5 in 2023 with the rule change. So it makes sense he would steal, but again, nothing about his season last year made any sense. I guess I'm happy that he's back and doing well. Just wish I had been in on him a little bit more than I was because I was completely out after last year looked that bad. So it sounds like you're in the scientific fact camp for Adames and kind of his rates right now.
Yeah, more or less.
Okay. Jordan Westberg, 37 games. He has 6 home runs, 5 stolen bases, 20-27. He's hitting 304. K rate's down from his rookie season, 19.3 from 24.6. Line drive rate is up slightly. Home run, the fly ball is up off of his terrible one from last year. is Jordan Westberg. Where does he fall in this grouping, Gray?
Wow. So I wrote a sleeper post for Jordan Westberg, and he's one of the reasons why my teams are doing well. I drafted him a bunch of places because he was like completely free in drafts, which I never understood in the preseason. And it was pretty obvious to me. Like if you look at his AAA numbers last year, he hit 18 homers, stole 6 bags, and hit 295 in AAA in 67 games. That's 18 homers in 67 games. So, I mean, it's hard to fake that, like that. I think the biggest problem was for people, they weren't sure how locked in his playing time would be. In that lineup, because I think people were worried that Jackson Holiday would come up and take over for Westberg, or I don't know, but there was reasons why there was hesitation. But I don't know. I mean, I believe it. I think it's scientific fact to a certain extent. Like he has power. He's shown it now every step of the way in the minor leagues. He's now done it in the major leagues, 6 homers in 37 games. Okay, so he's not a 40 homer guy, but he could hit 25 homers and steal 15 bags and hit 260. That's really good.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. He looks like what we expected from him, coming into last year when he got called up. And sometimes it's just an adjustment period. You got to kind of prepare yourself and get ready for it. K rate's down. All the batted ball looks great. So yeah, I'm in on Jordan Westberg. I think, kind of what he's doing is legitimate. I don't know that he keeps up the 304 necessarily with a 350 BABIP, but I don't see any reason he can't be a 275 hitter pretty easily rest of season, Gray.
Yep.
Let's move over to Anthony Volpe. He has 41 games, 5 home runs, 8 stolen bases, 28-20. He's hitting 265. K rate's down, walk rate's up. I mean, Volpe's been great to start the season. We stole this from him last year, though, where he was good at the beginning. Are you buying it more this year, though?
Yeah, he looks better. I mean, he's cut his strikeouts, his contact's so much better. So if he's a 2020 guy with a 245 to 255 average versus the 209 last year, I mean, that's huge. That's a big swing. Like if he's 2020 with a 50-point swing on average, he's a top, he's like a top 70, top 50 player overall.
Yeah. And he's been leading off for the Yankees. So, I mean, that's definitely helping as well. The batting order and has been very consistent. So that's been very nice. Let's talk about some of the bad on the player radar real quick, Gray. I'm just going to throw these two guys together and we'll discuss them. And that is Corbin Carroll and Julio Rodriguez. Corbin Carroll is hitting 201, does have 8 stolen bases and a couple home runs, but the 201 is certainly disappointing. And Julio Rodriguez is still stealing bases, but only has 2 home runs. And are you worried about either of these guys to the point that you would drop them outside of the first round, Greg?
Well, okay. So Corbin Carroll, absolutely. I think Corbin Carroll is probably going to be around a top 30 pick next year. Like I feel like he's going to have just a bad year. I don't see Corbin Carroll coming out of this. Maybe even lower than top 30, maybe top 50. Like Corbin Carroll feels like he's just kind of like the problem with him is the shoulder, like it was an issue last year at the second half of the year. I don't see why it would, suddenly get better. I don't know if it's going to get better in his future either. Like it's a recurring injury that unfortunately really hurts his power. So I'm 100% worried about Corbin Carroll. Julio Rodriguez, I'm not worried about at all. Like I feel like he's one of the biggest buy low guys. Like he is terrible in the beginning of every year. I don't understand really the concern with Julio Rodriguez. Like I look at his numbers, like his StatCast, like his exit velocity, he's top 7 percent in the league in exit velocity. He's top like 7% in hard hit percentage. He looks good. I mean, it's just the power hasn't been there, obviously. His launch angle looks fine. Like nothing really is bothering. Like nothing's really worrying me with Julio Rodriguez at all. I would absolutely trade for him.
Yeah, I agree. Everything in regards to the batted ball looks fine. 2 home runs, I don't really have an explanation for it. The K rate, I assume, is just based off of him pressing. But I mean, I would say he's dropped a little bit. I would say outside of the top 10 or anything. But if you ask me right now, would I take, Ellie De La Cruz or him? It's going to be close. Soto, Tucker, like Gunnar Henderson, some of the guys who were already kind of up in that area who have performed. It's probably a lot easier right now for me to take them than it would have been on draft day. Let's move over to Kevin Gausman. He has 8 starts. He's 2-3. He has a 4.95 ERA, a 1.51 WHIP, 22.6% K rate, which is down from the 31% it was last year. 6.1% walk rate, which is pretty much in line with what he's always done. Are you worried about Kevin Gausman? Because the production we've been getting has been awful. Rudy still has him number 5 on his rest of season among starting pitchers, so projections still are okay with him. Are you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a little bit worried, right? I don't feel 100%, confident in him, but looking at his numbers, so the split finger looks like it is dropping a little bit less. His fastball looks like it's not moving as much. There's this, his velocity seems okay-ish. It's down a little bit on the fastball. Yeah, I mean, his numbers don't look 100%. Like he doesn't seem like he's not himself, obviously. Now, would I take a discount and try it? Probably. I think he was off in April. As the season goes on, he can continue to get better. I would take a discount and buy him. I wouldn't buy him for draft price, obviously. I think he's gonna be he's probably gonna have an off year in general. From this point forward, maybe a top 40 starter, hopefully. But his numbers don't look 100% there. Not at all. It might have been the injury to start the year. So, as he gets further away from that injury, maybe he gets better. He hasn't necessarily, though. Obviously this past weekend he didn't pitch well. So yeah, I mean, I think I would acquire him in a trade, but I wouldn't. It would only be because it would be a buy low situation, which it's a tough thing to do. Like, are you trading Seth Lugo for Kevin Gausman? It's like a bird in the hand, kind of like, why do I want the stress? That's kind of how I feel about like buy lows a lot of times. Like, do I really want the ulcer that comes with a buy low? I don't know. But yeah, I still like him. I don't, his numbers don't look like awful. I'll say that.
All right. Would you take him or other following struggling starting pitcher, Jesus Luzardo?
I would take Gausman over Luzardo.
Okay. How about Gausman or Jose Barrios?
I would take Barrios. Again, it goes back to the Seth Lugo comp. It's like I just don't. I'm not looking to acquire an ulcer, basically. But that's also trading apples for apples is hard. Like if you're looking at say, no one would have done Willy Adames for Kevin Gausman, before the season, but would you do it now? Probably not. Probably not. Would you do Alex Bregman for Kevin Gausman? Absolutely. I would do that.
Yeah. Let's talk about Alex Bregman since you brought him up. 37 games this year. He has 1 home run, 2 stolen bases. He's hitting .201. Walk rate's down. K rate's fine. I mean, where are you at on Alex Bregman? Because the line he was giving you anyways wasn't spectacular, and now it's really bad, Greg.
Yeah, that's similar to what I talked about Alex Bregman on the Saturday show I do with Craig Mish. I talked about Alex Bregman there, and it was a similar thing I said, where it's like even when Alex Bregman is really good, like what is that? what is that?
A lot
really?
Of counting numbers.
It's like, yeah, it's counting numbers, really. I mean, it's like
a lot of Bo Bichette.
Yeah, it's a lot of Bo Bichettism. It's like 24 homers, a handful of steals, 260 average. Whatever. If you can trade Alex Bregman on his name alone, I would do it. I honestly, I don't know if I've ever drafted Alex Bregman. He is not the type of guy I draft. I think he's the type of guy Rudy drafts. I would never draft Alex Bregman. He does nothing for me. It's like, you look at Alex Bregman and you're like, are you Josh Bell on a better team? Is it? It's like, I can pick up Carlos Santana off of waivers, and he's going to do the same nonsense that Alex Bregman's going to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's you're not wrong, Ray. It's not a flattering profile, and when it goes wrong, it's really sad because it's bad. I used to be a big Alex Bregman fan when he was coming up. And then he had those couple of massive seasons, which made me feel great about my Alex Bregman love. But since then, it's just been a lot of boring run production, which is maybe something I don't value enough at times. But I also don't value it because stuff like this can happen at times. Let's talk about Matt Olson real quick. Is he just an odd number year player, Gray? Because every other year he's amazing, and then he's just awful the following season.
I am drafting Matt Olson #1 overall next year. I don't care what he does this year. I don't know. It seems if he is like an every other year Saber Hagen metrics type guy, I would say it's really just out of bad luck, really, because you look at his numbers and you're like, he looks like he should be good this year. Like there's nothing really going on that's like really terrible in his numbers. So I guess in that respect, I would buy low on Matt Olson. If I could, I would go out and get Matt Olson in every league, because I have a feeling like, how Schwarber usually goes off in June. We might see a 15 homer month from Matt Olson. Like he looks like he could be on the precipice of just having a huge rest of the season. Potentially, it's a risk, of course, but I would buy low.
Yeah, I would too. If you can get him at a discount, absolutely. I would go ahead and grab him up. As you mentioned, all the numbers look in line. Average exit velocity and hard hit are actually up. Batted balls all in line. If anything, the line drive rate is up a little bit, other than the home run to fly ball, which is obviously terrible. So yeah, I would go grab some Matt Olson shares. Let's move over to the bullpen, Gray. Is it now Trevor McGill closing in Milwaukee after we said pay amps for the last couple of weeks and he blew it?
Yeah, McGill looks like the guy. He's been the guy for now, I think like a week or two. So yeah, I think Devin Williams. I think this week he's going to start playing catch. And then probably that puts him about I don't know, maybe All-Star game. I would say he's still probably maybe June. Maybe mid-June, late June for Devin Williams. So still probably 6 weeks away, maybe. So anyway, McGill probably for now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, every time they give the job to somebody, they're absolutely terrible. So we'll see how long this lasts. But McGill's been good this season. There's no reason to think that he wouldn't continue to do that. And Pamps is blown up the last few times out. So seems like they've made that change. For now in LA, in Dodgerland, is it Daniel Hudson? He got the first opportunity, Gray.
I think actually Vesia got the first opportunity.
I think you're right.
But Hudson got the next one, and I think that might have been because Hudson needed the day off. But anyway, whatever the case is, I think Evan Phillips is coming back in like maybe by this weekend. Like he's coming back, I think, pretty soon. Maybe the following week. And he's going to take the job right back. So yeah, I mean, you could speculate if you're really desperate. I would go Hudson first, Vesia second, and then Treinen maybe third. But I wouldn't go that deep into the Dodger bullpen for that.
Okay, sounds good. Especially since it's a short term, thing. If you want to grab Hudson for this week or take your chances on some of those other guys, it's short term. Let's talk about Alex Lange, who got lit up by Houston on Sunday. It was kind of his first really bad outing of the season, or at least the first one he was charged with. Any concern here with Alex Lange?
Well, I mean, I think Jason Foley is still the closer in Detroit, but I think Hinch is just using them. Like, I don't know, maybe Hinch studied at the doorstep of Rocco Baldelli, and he's just using guys whenever. He's using the best guys in the highest leverage situation. So I would guess Foley's still the closer. But if the middle of the order comes up in the seventh and, there's guys on or something, Foley could come into the seventh inning and Lange maybe gets a save or two. But I don't think there's been any real change there.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like to your point, like Foley hasn't been getting the saves because they've been bringing him in when they need him, at least for over the last week or so or 2 weeks. But yeah, I mean, he's been great. I think if you want anybody from that bullpen, it's probably Foley. But, Lange isn't a complete lineup waste of space like maybe he was a few weeks ago when Foley was getting every single opportunity. Let's go ahead and move over to waivers, Greg. Give the people some bats that they can look for.
Oh, okay. All right. So Eddie Rosario has been Insaneario. No, that didn't work at all. But Eddie Rosario has been really hot. Leody Taveras has been crazy hot as well. Brent Rooker. So he's probably rostered in most leagues by this point, but he's actually top 25 on the player rater overall. We didn't talk about him before with the Scientific Facts, Sex Panther, and I Don't Believe You, but Brent Rooker has just been good, man. I would go. I could see acquiring him for really cheap. Anyway, he was in the top 5 on the player rater for the last week, so I mentioned him. Kevin Pillar has been hot. Paul DeJong, a delicious mustard, as well as a very good shortstop bat for the last week. Carlos Santana, mentioned him earlier. He had a great weekend. He was probably one of the top hitters this past weekend, like 3 homers in 3 games. And then Andy Ibanez. Who doesn't love Andy Ibanez? I mean, come on. He's amazing. Andy Ibanez. Brenton Doyle was good when the Rockies were in Coors. I don't know about it. They're away from Coors all this week, so I don't really know about that one. But yeah, and then Yandy Diaz has started to hit, and of course, who doesn't love Joe Adell? Huh? Hey, you know who doesn't love him? Ron Washington, who keeps batting him 7th in the order behind Cole Tucker. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many bats in that lineup that need to play all the time, Gray. I mean, how could you possibly fit Joe Adell anywhere above, such studs as Willie Calhoun and Mickey Moniak and Luis Yerme? And I mean, how could you possibly possibly fit him in there.
It's actually the Angels lineup. I know we're talking waivers, but the Angels lineup is like 5 guys who have been DFA'd by like 10 different teams, and
they literally have like guys who went over to Korea or Japan and played half their lineup.
They're all hitting above Joe Adele.
and yeah, it's
It's like you honestly, you could play a game where it's like Angels lineup, or he's hitting right now in the KBO. That's the Angels lineup. Anyway, those were some names, some hitters for you.
Yeah, definitely better bury Adele and Neto, who are the only young players they have who are any decent. Yeah, okay. Streaming options: Luis Hill, Christopher Sanchez, Mason Black, Eric Fetty, Bryce Elder, Ronel Blanco. Sorry, I don't have the matchups for you. Didn't have time to put those on there. And a lot of things weren't quite settled yet as I was putting these notes together. But yes, take a look at those. On Brent Rooker, I love him since you brought him up real quick. I have him in a number of leagues, like every single league. And yes, I do keep getting low ball since you brought it up, Gray. Like Jacob Young and Reed Detmers for Brent Rooker, and that's no. Those
are the kind of trade offers where I'm like, how do I mark this email as spam so I don't have to read it?
Yeah, and in an RCL too, where Reed Detmers has absolutely no value because he doesn't have value in really any league right now, being awful. All right, great. If anybody has specific questions for either of us, come find us on Twitter. I am at Razzball Fantasy. Gray is the owner of the @Razzball account. You can find us on youtube.com/Razzball Fantasy. You can leave comments there. Subscribe to us. Listen, rate, review, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. That helps us out. And until next week, Gray, good luck, and let's go get it.
All right, Lates.